When Malcolm-Jamal Warner died suddenly in July 2025, Jaleel White, the icon of Nickelodeon-era childhoods, felt the loss more than anyone expected. Now at 48, White is breaking a silence he's held for decades, revealing the final words Warner shared, and what they mean for creators, survivors, and storytellers everywhere. Stay to the end to understand the depth of their bond, the weight of public grief, and the legacy Warner entrusted to his friend before fading away. White's journey toward that moment began with a rare glimpse behind the curtain of child stardom. When Family Matters was winding down in the late 90s, Jaleel had already established himself as a child star navigating adult spaces. But meeting Warner later rewrote his internal compass. He often said their friendship started when their paths crossed through mutual connections, like Michelle Thomas, who appeared on both The Cosby Show and Family Matters. That trust extended beyond sets and into seconds of shared life, shaping White's approach to fame, mental health, and narrative ownership long before heartrending headlines replaced episode premieres. When Warner drowned in Costa Rica on July 20, 2025, the official cause was submersion, ruled accidental. But to fans, colleagues, and family, it felt unreal, like losing someone who was still speaking. Warner's legacy stood on multiple platforms: an award-winning actor, gifted poet, musician, producer, and podcast host of Not All Hood. His public co-host Candice Kelly shared they spoke daily, literally until the day before. They talked about legacy, mortality, purpose, and war. So when he died, it wasn't because his story ended abruptly, it was because the narrative continued without him. Under tight emotional guard, White stepped forward publicly only weeks later. On the red carpet, tears down his cheek, he called Warner "my brother," not metaphorically, but spiritually. He recounted hearing the news of his drowning like a physical blow that removed his breath. It wasn't performance. It was tribute. Now, he says, he's carrying Warner's final message forward, not as fan fiction, but as a guiding creed for anyone using voice under pressure, pain, or silence. What stunned fans most was the quote White shared as Warner's actual last words: "Keep going. Keep telling the stories. Don't stop." These aren't platitudes, they're piercing instruction. White revealed he heard those words directly during their last private conversation, just hours before Warner's trip. The statement wasn't a sign-off, it was a plea, a mission, a charge. It came from Warner's mouth at full throttle, then vanished with the tide. But White promises to take it on. He said he carries it in his heart, his career plans, and even his wardrobe choices, a silky tribute, done quietly, not with spectacle. Once Jaleel started talking publicly, on Extra, in People magazine, and on streaming TV, others came forward. Candice Kelly recounted in an exclusive interview how Warner texted her 2 days before disappearing. He'd shared fears about falsified contracts, fading creativity, and being watched. He wasn't suicidal, he was cautious. A thread on Instagram compiled months of Warner's cryptic text messages: "I'm tired, I don't feel safe, how many times do I have to say I'm done?" These were not staged revelations, they were poetic admissions made in real time. White used them not for gossip, but as prompts to address the shame of silence around mental health in black male artists. Warner's final podcast episode aired posthumously, hosted by Kelly and featuring Jon Batiste. They closed it with what Warner once defined publicly as his core belief, that stories can be sacred when shared truthfully. In a new wave of interviews and retrospectives, Warner's fans are asking the same question White is pushing to answer: who is the man behind the actor we knew so little about, and what happenstance led his star to wink out in the tropics? In independent musician circles, Warner's post-acting career inspired a movement. His latest album, Between the Lines, had dropped in 2024, a lush, orchestral record layered in spoken-word poetry that WAMC magazine hailed as the work of someone refusing erasure. He invited White to perform a spoken-word cameo, an emotional segment titled "Watch Me," in which Warner spoke directly to his listener: "Let me be vivid, even when I'm invisible." That segment is now trending on TikTok as a confession, a spoken sermon, a misinformation. When White finally shared these details on camera, his career shifted. He agreed to co-produce a documentary about Warner called Voice After Story, set to release in late 2025. Filmmaker Ava DuVernay reminded White how much Warner respected him. "He never felt like your sibling. He felt like your father. Because he was stable when you weren't." That statement surprised White, who considered Warner a contemporary. But he reflected that consistency, Warner's ability to juggle integrity, income, and advocacy, was the legacy he asked White to continue. White tearfully announced he was contributing to the fund in Warner's name, fulfilling the last chapter of Warner's final instructions. Amid all this activity, a petition trended to request reopening Warner's forensic death inquiry. While Costa Rican authorities ruled it accidental, the petition cited reports of viscera collection delay, single lifeguard station staffing error, and Warner's history of chronic migraines triggered by MRI contrast injections. The petition gained 345,000 signatures before being delivered to Costa Rica's Ministry of Justice. White endorsed it live, stating he trusted official channels yet believed accountability must still be demanded when truth is questioned. Then, a tweet from Chris Novoselic, Cobain's bassist and longtime friend of Warner's from Woodstock Anniversary collabs, went viral. In 1992, Malcolm told me he'd rather rewrite history than repeat it. Novoselic said he believes Warner's death wasn't about him quitting life, but rather about quitting erasure. That message resonated across obituaries and op-eds alike in early August 2025. Warner wasn't erased, he was echoing. As late summer 2025 arrived, Google searches for Malcolm-Jamal Warner doubled. Streams of The Cosby Show increased by 40%. His poetry collections and R&B singles topped independent charts. White shared on Instagram, when he said, "Don't stop," he meant the voice must continue, his, mine, ours. He's now writing a memoir, tentatively titled Voice After Story, A Brother's Journal. He says Warner's final words guide every line. White closed his press tour by saying, "I'll carry that torch until I die, or pass it along to someone braver." He believes Warner's words are too big for one carry. He wants Voice After Story to become a multimedia platform, workshops, scholarships, and chapbooks in community centers, in memory of Warner's belief in unfiltered black storytelling. This isn't celebrity grief. It's cultural transfer. White is doing what Warner commanded, not just honoring him, but becoming him in word, choice, and purpose. He's not rewriting history. He's restoring it. And though the grief is real, the message is now communal. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's last words weren't an ending. They were a truth. Don't stop. And now, everyone listening knows why that matters.